we're moving into an environment on the technology side that, which is really fascinating, is that the chips are getting to a point where the next generation chips can't use copper, and they're going to be using a technology likely to be ruthenium.
Apple and Tesla just performed a forward stock split. This means they increased the number of shares while decreasing their stock price, making it more affordable for the average investor to have a piece of the pie. I was able to profit myself because I learned to trade through Trade Genius Academy on the crypto side. I took part in various courses, personal coaching, chat rooms, signals trading tool. That's where I look for price signals in cryptocurrency from Bob Kudla at TradeGeniusAcademy.com, who also offers other signature trading tools for stocks, exchange-traded funds, binary options, and commodities. All you need is an internet connection to get started. Interact with Trade Genius community, fellow traders, and certified Trade Genius trades, alongside professionals who generate revenue for themselves in the stock market every single day. Live buy and sell alerts text to your phone, built for both new and experienced traders. So what are you waiting for? Sign up and see what the hype is all about at TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Use the promo code Columbus for 40% off all non-bundled items. Click on the link in the description box below, and now on with the interview. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, Bob Kudla, TradeLikeAGenius.com. We are going to talk about the electric economy, because as you see across the world, it doesn't matter what nation you're in or what government body, they're all talking about the shift away from fossil fuels right into this new renewable economy that's supposedly the base of the global GDP from this point forward, moving into 2050, 2060. It's got to start somewhere. What's the base? What is going to be built off and around everything else that you see? You know, you just go back a few years, we start to see the birth of electric cars, the wind generators, the solar panels really taking off. The cost per watt has decreased so significantly. If you would have bought the same solar panels in like 2008, the amount that you'd have to pay compared to today. So everything in scale is becoming less and less expensive. So what's really involved in this transition to an electric economy? That's the first question to ask. And then what kind of infrastructure, hardware, base commodities are going to be needed to build this out? And Bob has a couple answers for us here today. Do appreciate you joining. Hope you get something out of our conversation. The world is definitely shifting, and this could very well be a peek around the corner into how our electricity is going to be generated, transportation systems, and everything moving forward that way. So Bob, thanks for joining me. The floor is yours.
Yeah, and thanks, Dave. So, a lot of people think automatically that Green New Deal, but actually it's a little bit more layered than that, and it's a little bit more nuanced than that. We have, obviously we have the push from the progressive left to go and create this renewable economy, which is ultimately will likely fail in terms of the way they're envisioning it now, with basically just solar and wind, maybe some tidal power and stuff like that. But the real genesis behind this is that you have to look no further than like India and Saudi Arabia and some of these other countries. And what they're doing is that they're nuclearizing their nations. China is, because it's a balance of payments issue coming up. The world fiat system is collapsing. And, and you're big on crypto and you talk about trust coins and stuff like that. Well, countries like India do not generate enough foreign reserves to be able to purchase energy and food. And so they're making a strategic decision to go nuclear. China understands as well, and they're going nuclear. The Middle East knows that they're running out of cheap fuel, and in order to provide subsidized energy for their people, so they're trying to build nuclear power plants. And even in the United States now, with this new Pebble bed technology, you're starting to see a renaissance forming over the next 20 to 30 years to move to these reactors that simply can't melt down. It's physically impossible for it to do so. They can't get hot enough to melt anything, because they're going to be melting something that melts at a higher melting point than the uranium can heat itself up or the plutonium can heat themselves up. And so what you're going to see here then is a shift from petroleum-based transportation to electric-based transportation. And so the winners that are going to come out of that are, it's going to go from oil to natural gas to uranium with nuclear. And solar is not reliable enough. Wind is not reliable enough. You have to have on-demand power, and the batteries are going to be too expensive at this point in time to be able to store for surge. So we're going to eventually either get to total, natural gas facilities or total nuclear. So I think that's how we're going to phase over. So knowing that, the question you have to ask yourself are, what are the commodities that are going to be the winners in this new revolution? And I think it matters not a whit if it's Trump or Biden for the United States. It's going to be people like electric cars, and they like and from a maintenance standpoint, you'll like them too, because there's very few moving parts. And once they continue to engineer out the battery life and make the batteries more affordable, then it's just going to make owning these cars that much more pleasure. And what's in those components, you're talking about, everybody always look, aluminum, number one. These cars can be now be made with all aluminum, number one. Number two is, copper, obviously, right? And then, you're looking at lithium for the batteries. And then you're looking at, here's one that people don't really realize, is cobalt is huge in the electric environment. Not only for battery doping, but also they're going to be involved in the car infrastructure itself. And then we're moving into an environment on the technology side that, which is really fascinating, is that the chips are getting to a point where the next generation chips can't use copper, and they're going to be using a technology likely to be ruthenium. And so there's companies that actually mine ruthenium, say that 3 times fast. And there's actually a public company that we follow that is going to be something that'll be a very, very good long-term hold for people. And then obviously silver is involved in all of these things. And then platinum and palladium are going to be involved as well. So that's what I call the electric future. And those are in our watch list. And I'll give some of the names out here today. So I'll take a breath and let you, speak a little bit or ask some more questions. But that's the setup. It's already begun. It's not becoming. Musk made it. He was kind of the bleeding edge, and now you got Volkswagen and Mercedes and BMW, Ford and GM are coming on hard. And so I'm sure the Japanese companies are right there too.
Yeah, I see a lot of legislation across the planet planning for and trying to implement as we speak these kind of agendas going to zero fossil fuel burning. So my question is, ruthenium, where's the main countries that are mining this? Because I've looked at a couple fringe technologies in terms of the way to use and store electricity. Now, one of them I like is called compressed air energy storage, CAES. What they do is take a depleted or sometimes a depleted oil well, or they find limestone caverns themselves. And during high electrical production, what they do is they pump compressed air down in there. And during the peak hours, then they'll release the air and it spins a turbine such. It's a different way to utilize and store electricity versus batteries. But that's huge infrastructure. What is it going to come down to for the everyday person at their home to try to store this? What are you going to have, a huge giant battery bank of 15 or 20 lead acid batteries? I don't think so. But back to the ruthenium, what are the major countries that are producers, the mines operating at the moment that are producing this rare earth metal?
Yeah, so really the major producer, and my interest is only if there's a public company that's surrounding it, because I'm not going to trade ruthenium over the counter. Is that there's this Russian company that trades on the big board, Norsk, but the ticker symbol is NILSY. Last 2 years, the stock has already doubled, and it's trades at a PE of 14, has a 10% dividend, and the company continues to grow. Ruthenium is going to be huge. It's not necessarily the electric play, but everything, chips are going in everything too. So I just kind of threw that in there. We're kind of excited about it, and it's starting to get picked up by the analyst community. So I think you'll start seeing, more and more volume around it. It'll be very, very tradable. So that's Ruthenium. But if you shift over to the into the U.S. markets, is then you're looking at really primarily the United States is uranium is going to be the next big thing that they're going to probably try to save, from foreign competition. So you have companies like UU, which is a U.S. based company, and then you have UEC, and then just in a general sense, they got Cameco out of Canada, and you got URG. And so you need to start building a portfolio or at least a watch list and trade in and out of these until the next buying cycle gets into full swing, which is very soon. And I think the United States is going to be heavily involved in this, because the reason why a lot of people are freaked out about nuclear is that, these are steam pressure control rod type of reactions. The Pebble bed reaction is that you actually break up the uranium fuel into pellets and you spread it amongst, sodium rock, salt rock, interact and create the fission that you need. And if it gets too hot or the control is lost, what it's going to do is as it gets hotter and hotter, it just simply melts the sodium and creates a salt bath. And basically you can't turn solid into gas and salt at a temperature hot enough for the uranium to cause a runaway event. So it naturally just contains itself, makes creating nuclear power extremely affordable to build a system. You don't need a containment vessel. And you're going to see this everywhere. That technology, again, it's US led. And so we're starting to actually do some engineering work overseas. You'll see that come to the United States. And that's going to be absolutely huge. I just think there's tremendous opportunities coming regardless. And, fossil fuels aren't going away. Plastics and fertilizers, they're going to be using oil for, until our grandkids are dead. So, that's not, and, we're talking about a transition. Life of cars are 15, 20 years. And, so those things are just going to slowly roll off.
And I would say also the transition to the stay-home economy and the rural growth of the new economy as people exit the cities, come into the suburbs, and then even further out and repopulate the areas. And say the early 1900s that were booming along the rail lines, that were the small towns that most people skip through. The highway doesn't go through there anymore. People fly over it. And it's just rural towns of everything that had gone out of business. And those are the revitalization points. But they're going to need electricity. They're going to need the innovation. They're going to need the power, the connectivity. And by putting what you're talking about, a smaller regional, you could completely revamp the grid going from large institutional, which is going to be having some difficulties as we enter this more dense electromagnetic activity from the sun. The higher solar activity is now, even with no solar wind, no CME, sending red aurora down the magnetic field lines of the Earth that's cracking in the magnetosphere this last week. And you can already see down on the ground, it's starting to have some effect. So powers that be, I think, understand that what we know as the power grid now, maybe that's why they never hardened it much and they didn't really upkeep too much. Because if you knew you were going to transition to a new, more localized system in regional areas or statewide, countywide areas, whatever it would be, then why would you continue to pump all the money into a major, huge, what we understand right now is the electrical grid? Everything's being downsized and decentralized. So think about that in terms of cities, states, counties, power production, economy, connectivity, and everything through. And if I could add the one point there, with this transition of, like you said, fiat economy is starting to wane, and the transition into the cryptocurrency space coming in with the central bank digital currency, there's an enormous amount of people running to silver as a saving hedge against inflation. But then at the same time, with the green economy coming out here, there's going to be the most massive pull ever imaginable to try to get all this new green tech up and running. Now, I'm not talking about the nuclear. I'm going in with more of the traditionals here, but that's going to be, even if it's just a fraction of what the build out will be for the nuclear or whatever types of energy that we are going to move to, that is still going to create a significant draw and pull against the regular silver investor, the regular bullion that's out there that's going to be used and sucked in, swapped into the green energy, because it's really difficult to reclaim that silver or gold out of a laptop computer. I know they're trying to right now. There's several companies working on this to, reconstitute the finite, those very small amounts of gold and silver inside computers and whatnot. Before, it was uneconomical to try to mine that type of e-waste. So what are your thoughts on, as it's moving forward, the pull from this whole green movement for electricity to the transition from what's already out there? People are really panic buying all the silver still. The amount of mines that are providing silver are decreasing. So the amount of global silver supply, with never ending demand on both sides, industrial as well as personal savings, the mines just aren't there for the capacity that gold is pushing at right now. So what's your feeling on how these two are going to dovetail in the transition here? Speaking of transitions.
Well, silver is my number one, my number one commodity. So it's the most undervalued. Yeah, I agree with you. The mine output is decelerating, and there's a supply deficit. So as they chew through whatever is in inventory, is going to, I think, radically increase the price of silver. And then it's going to get a good guy anyway as people try to hedge against, the fiat world. If you think about silver, silver is much more than just a precious metal. It's the only precious metal that's really truly an industrial metal that has scale. Platinum and palladium some, but you're talking about silver can be used in basically in infectious disease control, sterilization. It's used in solar panels, and it's used in other electronics. So silver is a very, very viable commodity in the industrial space. So you're going to get that leaning on you too. Every solar panel uses 2 ounces of silver. So, you could do your part by getting solar. You could just tell people you're storing silver on your roof, so I got 30 ounces of silver sitting on my roof. I've had it on there for 10 years. I love silver. And then, my favorite silver miner is Hecla. It's in my core. USAS is my other favorite one. Those are two small junior miners that do really well. And then, you're talking about, some of the bigger players like, Pan American Silver. He does really well too. Alexa Silver, a silver miner starting to move today. FSM. So there's a lot of choices out there for you to start building a position. And then, what we do at Trade Genius, we kind of trade in and out of these to, maximize our returns and provide the most opportunities for those who subscribe to us. So that's how we like it. That's how we play it. I think silver, we just did a video on it on my channel that I think 3160 is the next measured move for silver to move higher. Everything right now is digesting the election and the stimulus talk, but the government needs to produce an excess of $1 trillion in deficit a quarter, or we collapse into a deflationary depression. So they're going to have to raise the Fed balance sheet by $4 trillion next 12 months, or we're going to go into massive deflation.